Qing's Prose. The moon on the sea. A big moon floated in the boundless Black Sea. My brother stood on the sea, with his hands behind his back, his attitude gentle and full of wine. The surroundings were quiet, with no sound at all. The rolling moonlight filled the entire human heart, and the entire world. Suddenly, he smiled and waved at me. A breeze blew up in the sky, coldly and flutteringly, and I flew to his side. Then the whole universe started to change. There were turbulent waves below, one wave flying up, another wave rolling down, and countless currents flying in a regular manner. The sky above seemed to join in the fun, with a moon in the east and a moon in the west. 3 or 5 moons competed to show their faces among the clouds. I want that big moon, brother. I suddenly had the idea of pursuing light in my heart, and shouted enthusiastically, while holding his brother's hand. He wanted to fly to the sky with him to catch it, but he found that his fingers were cold. "What's the matter, brother?" I asked in surprise. Looking back, I saw that his face was also gloomy. "Nothing," he replied quietly, looking at the other pale yellow moon in the distance in the sky, and said, "That is interesting. The pale yellow moon looks like a hook." So I was at a loss. A pale yellow moon, a common pale yellow moon on the roof of my hometown. My mother often wept over it. The young and beautiful abandoned woman cried every night and finally turned into a crazy woman. My heart would only sink, and my body could not help but sink. I threw away my brother's cool hand and felt that the whole universe was shaking. The moonlight in the sky was messy, and the waves on the sea were rolling. "Hey!" I shouted in horror and woke up. The moon on the sea disappeared, and all that was left was a cold sweat and pain. The disease was on the right corner of my abdomen. I was suffering from appendicitis. Oh my God, it's not a good thing to be sick. And you'll have nightmares when you're sick, especially some of them. Therefore, although I don't pay attention to superstition on weekdays, I can't help but have to dream deeply tonight. I thought to myself, my brother has been dead for many years, and he flew hand in hand with me in his dream. Am I going to die too? As for catching the moon seems to represent light. When you see something bright, you want to catch it. This is a common dream of human beings, but dreams will always be dreams, and whether there is any so-called true light in the world is still unknown. Therefore, when I intend to catch it, or start to catch it, I have doubts in my heart, and finally I am at a loss, and my body and mind are sinking, falling into the vast sea. Even if someone brave enough to fly up and catch the moon, what good would it do? People will still grow old, get sick, suffer and worry, have to do all kinds of boring things, and even die. So, what is the use of fishing for the moon? To be more specific, let's talk about myself. When I was young, I sacrificed a lot of time for games, worked hard to read, right? And do gymnastics. It is said that it is for future happiness. It is a bright ideal. Later, when I grew up, I got married, raised children, and became a well-behaved wife and mother. I suppressed my romantic fantasies every day and lost my youth in boring years. It is said that it was for the sake of morality and reputation, and it was also a kind of bright ideal. Later, I saw that relying solely on morality and reputation was of no use. People didn't love you, abused you, abandoned you, and food became a problem. So I thought of working on my own. But to be independent, you must first have freedom. To have freedom, you must first get rid of the shackles of marriage. To get rid of the shackles of marriage, you must first give up your biological children. At that time, the so-called bright ideal was already like a pale yellow moon. A pale yellow moon would be a pale yellow moon. Finally, my career began, writing articles, editing magazines, running around every day, writing letters, and soliciting manuscripts from people everywhere. Show hospitality to people. It was time for dinner, so I ran to the typesetting room with an empty stomach. When I got the proofs and hurried home, the food was already cold, and the servants had almost eaten all the dishes. But I was hungry and wolfed down the proofs while proofreading them. Under the electric light of 5 candles, I studied until midnight. There was a lot of sand and dirt mixed within for meters of the door. I finally swallowed it whole, and finally entered the succumb, which ulcerated. I clearly remember the day I fell ill. It was noon. At a banquet, the host diligently persuaded me to drink. I drank, first in sips, and then in cups. I just felt abdominal cramps, but it seemed impolite and inelegant to say it, so I had no choice but to remain silent. The host raised his glass, and so did I at first. I was asked to drink more, but I refused. Later, I lost the strength to refuse and felt a tight pain in my abdomen. I thought it would be better to drink some wine to cool down, so I gulped down the wine one cup at a time, but sweat broke out in waves. The owner was very considerate and ordered to turn on the fan. A person with chills, fever, and severe abdominal pain sat eating, drinking, talking, laughing, and socializing with the fan spinning at high speed. I really can't describe what it felt like. I just remember that I couldn't sit down for more than 3 or 5 minutes before continuing. If he didn't go down, he ran to the window to see the funeral. But before the coffin for the big funeral was carried, I was already sick on the sofa. "She's drunk," I seemed to hear someone saying. Then I heard the owner hire a car for me. On the way, I came to my senses and asked the driver to drive to X hospital. The doctor said that he had eaten something bad and had to take a pollutant. I took laxatives and lay in bed. At night, I was rolling around in pain. So I cried and shouted, and cried again and again. I call Mom. When I was healthy, I forgot about her. When I was in trouble, she was the only one I remembered. But my mother didn't answer. She was in her hometown, looking at the pale yellow moon and shedding tears. I felt sad and terrified. I swore to God that I would never forget her again or forget her without conscience. The abdominal pain came in waves. When the pain was so severe, it felt like my stomach was about to burst. I just grabbed my hair desperately. But when the pain eased, I felt sad again. I was alone. I couldn't find any relatives in this room. Why did I leave my mother? She was old, neurasthenic, immobile, and under the care of a stupid and ignorant servant. Why did I leave my child? They are all weak and pitiful, helpless, being bullied and abused by their stepmother. Thinking of this, I seemed to see a few sad little faces, shaking at the end of the swelling, shouting in unison, "Mom!" Their voices are weak, blown away by the sea breeze. I can't hear clearly. I also saw the pain in the psoas muscles. Under the moonlight, an old woman with white hair and a stooped look was looking for me, but she couldn't be found. "Mom!" too, I cried loudly. The pain was in my belly and even more painful in my heart. "Mom!" A young girl stood in front of the bed. It was my sister, with a panicked face. "My stomach hurts." "Mom!" I cried even more, acting like a baby. She also burst into tears and kept shouting ouch, as if she had no idea. I thought, what a mess for me. A girl who just arrived in Shanghai couldn't call a car in the middle of the night and send patients to the hospital. She was so anxious that she still couldn't cure my abdominal pain. So he wiped away his tears and comforted her again and again. "Don't reward me. I don't feel any pain. It doesn't hurt anymore now. You lied to me." She patted her shoulders and shrugged. "What should I do, Mom?" "Don't cry. I really don't feel any pain. You lied to me. It really doesn't hurt at all. What should I do?" She kept slapping her even more, and I got annoyed and said, "If you want to cry, I will feel pain. Get out of here one by one." She went out and stood at the door of the room. I just held my stomach, curled up into a ball, and gritted my teeth. I feel like a writer, a brave woman, one of the greatest people to come, is now almost done, painfully, lonely, lying on the bed, dreaming about the moon on the sea. You can't catch the moon on the sea. Even if you catch it, it's useless. The result is still a disappointment. I know that all bright ideals are liars. They defrauded me of my youth and my life. Now it's too late even for me. At the end of the sea, Mother and my children under a pale yellow moon. As long as I can live to see you again, I am willing to sink to the bottom of the sea forever, and I am willing to be shattered into pieces. Appendicitis, terrible appendicitis. I fainted again from the pain.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.